Greetings. This is Dr. Missick. Once again, we're going to talk about Esther in the Bible. And we have a wonderful song for you, and it's called The First Time. It is the first time that I really need you. It is the first time that I miss you. It is the first time I want to be near you. That is the first time I want to cleave to you. The first time want to see you. The first time I want to find you. I'm using that song that I made up because maybe this particular part of Esther's life reveals a time that she really needs to be with the king and she really needs to discuss an issue with the king. But let me ask you to open your Hebrew book, Hebrew Testament, up to Esther chapter 4. And it says, Mordecai, this is the topic, Mordecai requests Esther's help. When Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on burlap and ashes, and went out into the city, crying with a loud and bitter wail. He went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. And as the news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, and wailed, and many people laid in burlap and ashes. When Queen Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her about Mordecai, she was deeply distressed. She sent clothing to him to replace his burlap, but he refused it. Then Esther sent for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who had been appointed as her attendant. She ordered him to go to Mordecai and find out what was troubling him and why he was in mourning. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the square in front of the palace gate. Mordecai told him the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the decree issued in Susa and called the death of all Jews. He asked Hathach to show it to Esther and explain the situation to her. He asked Hathach to direct her to go to the king to beg for mercy and to plead for her people. So Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. Then Esther told Hathach to go back and relay this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the province knew that anyone who appears before the king in this inner court without being invited is doomed to die, unless the king hold out his golden scepter, and the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. So it looks like he has not even called for Esther. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther: Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace you will escape when all of the Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this? So you see, nobody really knows what God's plans are. Certainly not Esther. And at that particular time, certainly not Mordecai. So now we see Esther in a real pickle, in a real dilemma. She has to go before the king, and not having seen the king in 30 days. He hasn't called for anyone. Sounds like he was busy doing something in the kingdom. And now Esther has to go before him. Sometimes we're in a predicament that we have to go before someone we know they don't want to see us. And it may just mean our doom for them to see us. And so Esther had to take on this terrible situation. But she didn't take it on by herself. She had to pray to God. She had to fast. and she had to get herself ready to present herself before the king so that the king's heart will be touched and turned, and it would reveal Haman for what he really is, a conniver, an evil person, and the evil that Haman had planned for Mordecai would fall on himself. And sometimes just to turn things around, we have to go to God in prayer. Not an easy trip. I'm sure that Esther may have even thought in several different ways. Here's a song that I just made up, and I want you to, maybe you can sing it with me. It's not easy. It's an easy song. Walk with me and pay attention. Talk with me and pay attention. Tell me that you love me. I'm willing to listen. I want to hear. I want to hear from you. Tell me that you will listen. I need you. I really, really need you. Can you hear me? Listen to me. Listen and give me love. I'm longing for your love. I really need you. I really need you. Sometimes when we have problems, it's always good to have a song somewhere in our hearts. And when I think of Esther's problem, I think of what song in her heart could she be saying? How did she feel at that particular time when she had not seen the king for such a long while or a long time? And here she was presented with a problem that would cause the detriment of maybe herself and her people. And so she did what was wise. She went before the king, but before she went before the king, she went before him with prayer and fasting. And this is what we have to learn to do. Sometimes we have to fast before God and call on God. And sometimes we need other people to fast with us, pray, give up something so that we can get our prayers answered. So I want you to think about toward the end of the story, which I'm not going to go into deep elaboration on it. Esther and Mordecai got victory. And if we want victory in anything we do, we have to have faith. We have to trust God. We have to know that God is going to answer our prayers. And sometimes it's good to have a song in our hearts. And sometimes even love songs make us feel good because there's always love in the Bible. The Bible always talks about God's love and love between man and woman. And that's how we're here today. That's the reason for us being here. Let me go with that song. Walk with me and pay attention. Talk with me and pay attention. Tell me that you love me. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen to you. Why don't you hear me? I'm willing to tell you that I need you. I really